What is going on, everyone? Welcome to the Gold Pot Podcast. Today, we are here with Cesar Espino, who is an author, entrepreneur, business coach, philanthropist, and real estate investor. Pretty big portfolio. Mr. Espino was generous enough to join us today and tell us a story about his life. So without any further ado, Cesar, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, definitely. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Definitely, I'm honored to be here, and definitely want to see what I can do to contribute to your community.
It's an honor for us. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome.
So whenever you're ready, we could just jump right into the story time, unless you have any further questions for me.
No, definitely. I can definitely jump into that right now. And so I definitely, once again, say thank you for the invite, and just want to tell everybody a little bit about my background and who I am and how I came to be where I'm at now. Again, as you introduced me, my name is Cesar Espino, and I was actually, I'm living in the United States now, except I was born in Mexico City. And that's really where my story begins, right? I was born into just one parent, never met my biological father. And we actually, I was born into a very poor society. And what I mean by that is that we didn't have anything to show for. Growing up, it was a bit challenging in many different aspects. Number one, just being born to just one parent. Number two, we didn't have a place that we own or that we can call a home. And so based on that, I remember, living in this very small place, which is about 250 square feet. So about 25 meters and square meters. And really it was for my mom, my grandmother, my older brother, and myself, except we called that our home. This place was made out of sheet metal, plywood, and there was no electricity, no running water, and it was really just on the dirt. Nevertheless, though, that was my reality. And if you go back and look at some of my pictures and kind of go back to that, you will see that I didn't have the clothes, I didn't have the childhood that most of the people would have at that time. And for me, what was very interesting is that at the age of 4, my mom, just after 4 months of me turning 4, my mom decided to take her own leap of faith by coming to the States. You'll often hear people, I want to go after the American dream, right? Specifically in Latin America. And so my mom ended up taking that leap, leaving me behind, myself and my older brother, with my grandmother. To me, that was a very pivotal moment because at that point, I started working at such an early age. We used to actually sell stuff at the SWAT meet. We used to do cookies, bread, quesadillas, taquitos, a bunch of different things to be able to survive. And I always said that wasn't as profitable as we wanted to be because we graduated, and I ended up getting, my grandmother ended up getting a sewing machine. So I know how to sew clothing. And then we did it for a minute, for quite some time. I was not like any other kid. I couldn't play. My life was, I go to school, I came home, I did my homework, and then I had to work all the way through the night before I would go to sleep. And if anytime I found myself sleeping, my grandmother will definitely put me back on track and say, hey, you got to get to work. Because again, that was my reality. Looking back now, there's definitely many lessons to be learned from that. Obviously, I don't condemn for anybody to be working at an early age, except for me, it was a necessity to be able to survive. Looking back now, there's so many different lessons that have made me who I am now in terms of that mind of an entrepreneur. The other thing that I want to leave with you guys right now is I migrated to the States when I was 10 years old. And at 10 years old, many people nowadays, I find them that they find themselves like they're in a place where they don't fit in, or they feel like this is too uncomfortable, so I don't want to be here. Well, that was me back then at 10 years old. I came to the States. I did not know the language. I couldn't communicate with anybody. I didn't have friends. And I remember telling who I see as my dad now, who's my stepdad, I remember telling my dad at that moment, I said, I don't belong here. Send me back to Mexico. Here's a lesson to be learned with that. I was so uncomfortable being in this great nation, knowing that I could have an opportunity at life, that I wanted to go back to what I was comfortable. I was comfortable being poor. I was comfortable working. I was comfortable not having clothes, not having a lifestyle. And I was very uncomfortable being in this great nation. That's a lesson to be learned because a lot of times we are faced with so many different things in our lives that we are so afraid of being uncomfortable that we don't take action, right? We allow that fear to take away the opportunity that's in front of us. And so a lot of times we tend to not take that first step. I'm glad they didn't send me back. I'm glad they left me here, because through that, I am who I am now. I went through many other challenges through my first couple of years here in the States. I learned the language at just 12 years old, so 2 years after being here. And then through that, I went through other obstacles. My next major obstacle was that at the age of 15, I ended up getting, I say we, but it wasn't really me, but my girlfriend at the time, we ended up getting pregnant. And I had my daughter at the age of 16. Let's think about it for 1 second, right? I'm a kid having a kid. Now, not only did I have to grow faster because I want to take responsibility, except now I had put more weight on my shoulders. For me, though, what I went through is I realized that I grew up without a father. And I said, you know what? I want to make sure that my daughter has everything that I didn't have as a kid, and that she doesn't have to work the way I worked as a kid. With that mentality, I pretty much went through my high school years, graduated with honors, and I was working full time. I was grinding every single day to make sure that I can give my daughter the life that I didn't have as a kid. A lot of times people decide to walk away from something like that, and they tend to not face the reality, and they ended up abandoning, the kids, like the dad that I don't know at this point that left me. Except for me, I realized that there's something bigger, there's a bigger purpose. And so fast forward, and then I can have you guys talk a little bit or ask me some questions. Fast forward to my early 20s. I went through other challenges. And I actually, my very first book is You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. Because we're always going to be faced with many different obstacles, many different challenges, and you're going to have society, you're going to have friends, you're going to have family members, you're going to have all these different distractions telling you that you cannot do it. The only person that can help you move through those challenges is you, or the person you see in that mirror when you wake up. For me, again, I went through so many different challenges. At the age of 21, about 21, 22, I had my next major challenge. Due to some major difficulties, I ended up in jail, and I was in jail for about 5 days. And that was another wake-up call. Going through that experience, I would not change it for anything, because, again, I've learned from everything. By the way, I believe now that everything that I go through is not happening to me, is happening for me. And everything that I'm going through, I'm extracting the lessons, and I'm extracting whatever I need to learn so that I can become 1% better tomorrow. Going through all of that, I said, I have to change dynamics. I have to do something for me. If you do what is easy, your life will be hard. If you do what is hard, your life will be easy. Les Brown talks about that a lot. And so for me, I had to work on myself. I had to go back to school, get my master's in business administration, get into corporate America, and kind of go through all that cycle. Now, I decided a couple of years back that there was a bigger purpose for me, and I went and became a full-time entrepreneur. I started helping families that are less fortunate, very similar to the way that I was brought up as a kid. And now I'm working on doing all of that, impacting people's lives, empowering them, and inspiring them through the things that I've gone through in my life. I am pleased to say that I'm now a 9-time book author. 4 of them are bestsellers in Canada, Mexico, Australia, the UK. And I am also a real estate investor. And I also do mind coaching, and I also do a lot of business consulting. And so definitely there's a lot of lessons to be learned. What I will tell you is that you got to make sure that you work harder on yourself than you do on anybody else. Because at the end of the day, if you're not changing those dynamics, you're not changing the way you see things, you're going to be facing with some major challenges. And unless you know how to deal with those challenges, you're not going to be able to come out of that.
That was an amazing story. Thank you so much, Cesar. That was honestly one of the best ones we've heard so far. There were so many valuable lessons to be learned from it. And I'm actually looking forward to rewatching this and trying to piece together the little pieces of advice so it could just all connect. So I really appreciate that.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And again, if I'm open to any questions you guys might have, or I can give you more lessons or more things that I've gone through in my journey and the things that I do, from even writing a book to becoming a real estate investor. There's so many different things that go with that too, right? Again, I go back to the idea that sometimes we are so afraid of the unknown that sometimes opportunities are always around us, except they're not in a shiny object. They don't look beautiful, right? And so because we don't see them, we tend to forget. And again, here's another thing that happened to me when I wrote my first book. And sometimes we have this idea that we start talking ourselves out of doing something. For me, when I wanted to write my first book, I had the idea, what if I write a book about my life story and all the lessons that I've gone through so that somebody can relate to that and they can use that in their own journey. And then I started thinking to myself, and I said, Cesar, who are you kidding? You are not a writer. You don't like to read. No one's going to want to buy your book. Why even bother? And at that moment, I started thinking, I'm like, you know what? That's right. I talked myself out of doing something that I wanted to do because I didn't have the belief that I was worthy enough of doing that, or that nobody will actually look at my story. It wasn't until a few months later, I decided to change the framing, the idea, how I see things. And I said, what if I do this for myself? What about if I do this for a self-accomplishment? What about if I do this so that I can leave something behind for my daughter? If nobody reads it, nobody buys it, at least I did it for myself. When I changed that frame, the way of looking at those things, man, things opened up for me super fast. At that point, I started writing my book. I ended up finishing my book within 3 months, actually 2 months prior than I expected. I ended up publishing the book, and oh my God, like the testimonials that I was getting from people were amazing, and they blew my mind away. And again, sometimes we are so close to doing something, yet we tend to talk ourselves out of doing it.
Yeah, so just going back to the shiny example you gave to us. So in our age group, a lot of problems that I see with myself and also my friends that are in the call right now is it's hard to find something. It's hard to find your thing, if you understand what I mean. So for example, you can see John, he's in the call. He's a barber. He found his thing. He's making his money now. But what advice would you give to people who are trying to find their passion, or trying to find ways that they can make money or build their business?
Yeah, definitely. The first thing I'm going to tell you, and I think for anybody that's trying to get into some sort of business, whatever that industry might be, first and foremost, make sure that you are working for make sure that you're not working for profit, that you are working for purpose. A lot of entrepreneurs they do the mistake of going into, I want to make money, I'm working for profits. And I'm not saying that money is not a good thing. Definitely it's a good thing, except if you're only doing it for profits and you don't have a purpose tied into that, that is going to end pretty soon. So I always tell people, make sure that you're working for purpose, and then the profits will come. Having that said, for people that want to make something a side job, or they want to make some sort of money, what is your purpose? What is your passion? You need to understand what is that one thing that you're looking to accomplish, right? And based on that, go out and do that. Even if you don't have all of the things figured out, right? I'm sure, maybe when you put this podcast together, a lot of times I have known people that they worry about the audio, the video, what am I going to call my podcast, the graphics, and they worry about all of those things. And then they never get started because they're waiting for that perfect moment of having all those things in line. Well, for you to get started, all you got to do is have the first thing figured out, whatever that one step is. So my best advice is find your passion, understand what that is, or for me, I call it my highest intention. What is the one thing that you want to accomplish? And then go out and find something similar and start working through that. So if you like to, if you're a barber and you like to do that because it brings you joy, do more of that. Volunteer at certain places so that you can learn more about that trade, that industry, and then go out and do it on your own, right? Again, you don't have to have all of the answers. You just need to have one small component to get started.
You're perfect. That was exactly what I was looking for. It was a perfect answer. Thank you so much. So I only got a couple more questions for you, and then we have a shy crowd, but I'll see if they have any questions as well. So
sure.
So next question to you is, so for you, you had a lot of motivational forces, but for someone who doesn't have that, what do you suggest they put as that motivation to keep them going, waking up every day, grinding?
Yeah. Again, for me, you're right. My first motivation was like, I didn't want my daughter to go through the things that I went through. And that became a huge motivation for me. A lot of times you want to look deep down and say, okay, if not for somebody in my immediate family, sometimes it could be your mom, it could be your dad, it could be your brother, sister, or a significant other, right? There's always going to be somebody, except you have to ask yourself, what is that one person that I want to motivate? if there's nobody else, again, the person you have to motivate is the person that is in front of your mirror. For me, when I started my journey of being an entrepreneur, when I started my journey of really working on myself, it was very hard for me to see myself in the mirror and say, hey, Cesar, I appreciate you. Hey, Cesar, I thank you. Hey, Cesar, I love you. That was very hard for me to do. And I can guarantee you that anybody that hasn't put in the work and you go in front of the mirror and you start talking to yourself that way is going to be very uncomfortable. You're probably going to be looking away. Again, the person you have to motivate more than anybody else is yourself. You have to work on yourself first. Again, you got to work harder on yourself than you do on anybody else. It's like the analogy of the when you're flying and you lose cabin pressure. You have to make sure that you put in the masks first before you help anybody else. Because if you do everybody else, you might forget to put your mask, and then you're going to end up losing or even dying. It's the same idea. Your motivation should be yourself. Well, how do I motivate myself if I feel like I don't have the passion, or I don't have the interest? Well, ask yourself, what is one thing? Go back in time. What is one thing that brings you joy? What is that one thing? It could be an activity. It could be a moment in life. Whatever that might be, go back and think, what is that one thing that brings me joy? The second thing you got to ask after that is, in this moment of joy, what would I want to do? What is that one thing that I would like to do? For some people, it could be go out into nature and go and clear your mind and walk and just kind of take in all of that and listen to podcasts like this, listen to audio books that are going to help you get better. If you're trying to become a real estate investor, don't spend time listening to things that are not related to real estate investing. Go out and find podcasts that are related to that. Go out and find books that are related to that. There's so much information, and sometimes we consume the wrong information. And so for anyone that's trying to find the motivation, find a happy medium. What is it that you would like to do in that moment? And then go find more of that and do it.
That was perfect. I really like what you said about the consumption, because one of my biggest beliefs is what you consume consumes you. So if you're just watching, if you're watching stupid YouTube videos, that's all that's going to be in your head. So the last question that I have for you actually is from Hike Miranda. So I'm gonna give it to him, and he's gonna turn on his mic and ask that.
Definitely.
Hi. So I was gonna ask, was there a point in your journey where you almost gave up, and how'd you recover and get back on track?
Yeah, you know what? That's a really good question, and I gotta tell you, there's many of those moments, and even to this day, I still go back, and I might have some of those moments, right? I am a human, and we go through that. For me, I go back to the one thing that I talked about. You have to understand, what is the one thing you're going after? What is that motivation? What is that purpose, right? When you go back and you tie your motivation to your purpose, even on the very difficult times, you're going to find something to help you move forward. I can tell you early on in my story, let me give you a little bit of another story that happened to me. Early on in my career of being an entrepreneur, I left a very good paying job. I was traveling all over the place. I was working for this corporate company in the US, and I had a really good position. I didn't have to worry about really anything. I traveled a lot. I made good money. I was living the life. When I decided to leave that job and become a full-time entrepreneur with my real estate investing initially, there were so many different things happening in my head. Did I make the right decision? Did I actually do the right thing by leaving a secure job to do this on my own? Through that journey, I faced things that I had never faced in my life. For the first time in my life, I was having panic attacks. I was having anxiety attacks. One time it got so bad that I was actually doing some philanthropy work, and I was feeding the homeless. And out of nowhere, my world started churning and churning and churning. And I literally just dropped to the ground. I started vomiting, liquids. I was sweating a lot. I was literally losing my mind in the middle of these cross streets. And luckily, there was a friend that was with me at that time and helped me out. And they called my parents, and they ended up taking me to the emergency room because it was really, really bad. I actually talk about it in one of my books. And again, I could have given up that moment. Yet I realized, you know what? I'm going through this for a reason. I'm going through that transformational phase in my life of getting uncomfortable because I was living a very comfortable life, the 9 to 5, the secure job. And then I tied that into my purpose. My purpose is that I want to impact people's lives. And this is bigger than me. I think that when you start thinking about anything you're going through life and you start saying, you know what, I know that if I take care of other people, I'm going to be taking care of myself, right? Zig Ziglar talks about this. If you do enough for other people, you're going to get everything you want. When you start seeing it from that perspective that there's a bigger purpose for you, I think you're going to be able to continue to move forward. Find that motivation. If you're watching this, people that are watching this, obviously there's a reason why. That means that God, the universe, or that greater power that you believe in is not over with you. There's so much more for you to accomplish, right? And this might be that message you need to hear and say, hey, well, if I know that I have a bigger purpose in life, if I know that I want to impact my life, my family, or those that have supported me, what do I have to do today to make that happen? Even if I get all these obstacles and challenges, because you're going to get them. You're going to get a lot of those storms, and you got to be able to go through them. It's how you react to the things that are happening to you versus doing nothing about it.
All right. Thank you so much for explaining.
Yep.
So the last question on my behalf for you is, as I said before, you're an author, you're an entrepreneur, business coach, 1,000 different things. And as you said, you have to worry about a daughter as well during all of these, right? So there's a lot in life for you to balance. So my question to you is, where did you find the pain point where you balance all of these things? How do you keep your mind clear and focus on all of these things at the same time while moving forward?
Yeah. So a couple of things. Number one, going through all of that, I decided that one, I have to work on myself. And what do I mean by that? I believe a lot on self-development. I believe a lot on the unconscious mind and how you program the mind. Just to give you some statistics, right? When you look at communication, there's 3 major components. There is the physiology, there is the tonality, and there are the words, right? Physiology is about 63% of your communication, tonality is about 30%, and then words are about 7%. And so with that in mind, how you speak to others and how you speak to yourself is so important for the programming of your unconscious mind. So what do I mean by that? With that, I had to work on myself. I really got rid of unuseful news. There's a lot of negative news, as you know, in the world. There's so much negative stuff. And so taking that program is going to hinder your future self. So I got rid of that. I got rid of music that is not serving me. I started reading. If you look at very successful people, they, on an average, they read about 52 books per year. Some read more, right? And so I said, I want to start reading more books. And last year, I read 1 per month. This year, I'm trying to do 2 to 3 per month. It's just really improving that, right? And so just changing that. The other thing that I did is I started doing more of this, more podcasts, more networking events, places that I can find people that want more out of life so that I can keep going forward. Through all of that, I believe that it's not so much about priority management, it's much more about time management. You manage your time and the priorities are going to fall into place. So for me, I'm old-fashioned. I have a little notepad, and here I write down all the things that I got to get done today. All the things that I want to complete today. I work off of my phone calendar. So this interview here, it was booked on my calendar. So how you can balance again your life, and it's not about balancing my family, it's not about balancing my business, it's not about balancing all of that. Again, to me, it's time management. You manage your time, all your priorities, and so your priorities, your family, your priorities, your work, whatever that might be, is going to fall into place. So I highly recommend, one, working on yourself. Like, really look deep down. What are the things you can change about you so that you can become a better version tomorrow by 1%? The second thing is you want to be able to network with different communities, different people to help you move forward. People that are going to edify you. Kind of like the average 5. And I take that further, by the way. The average 5, right? You have one group of people that are kind of doing it big. They could be your mentors. They could be people that you can learn from, people that want to help you, right? So that's like a mentor. The other group of people will be people that are in the same level as you are, people that have the same ambition, the people that are working with the same common goal, except they're not competing with you. That's a big difference. They are not competing with you. They're actually creating joint ventures and doing things to edify you and help you out. And then the last one, which I think is so critical, is now you have the opportunity to reach down and bring people up to your level, people that want to become you. This is that idea of giving back. To me, that's the average 5. And then the last one is getting to some sort of calendar or some sort of ritual that on a daily basis, you're going to create a calendar of what is going to be your day. I'm going to go out for a walk. I'm going to spend 30 minutes on meditating. I'm going to read a book a day or 10 pages a day, whatever that might be. Like, create that. If you can create those 3 different things, you can balance your life better.
I really like that answer because I actually looked at it the opposite way. So I would write down a list of my priorities. So I would do priority 1, priority 2, priority 3. So now I have a whole different view of looking at it and a different approach, which I will definitely try out.
Yeah, definitely. I think you definitely do it. I know for me, when I was in corporate America, we always talked about priority management. Then I realized after I came out of corporate America, it's not so much about priority, it's time management, because we all have the same amount of time, and how you use your time will determine your outcome.
Yeah, that's a great perspective. So on my behalf, that's the questions for me. So if anyone else has any questions, you can turn your mics on. But if not, we could wrap things up and move forward to the conclusion. So I'll give you guys about 5-10 seconds. Okay, yeah, shy crowd. So Cesar, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. It was an amazing story. It was truly motivational, and I'm really looking forward to going back and watching this again.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you so much for having me. And if I may leave you with one last, comment is, and I'm not a relationship expert, except I'm going to give you this. Make sure that you're not cheating on your future with your past. Okay. A lot of times we tend to live in the past and we're not on the now moment or on the present moment. And therefore we're hindering our future. So do not cheat on your future with your past, because that's going to be so critical to your growth.
Thank you so much, Cesar.
Wait, I have one question.
Yes. Go ahead, John.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so when you say cheat on your future, what you just said, what can be a situation that might mess you up in the future?
Yeah, so a lot of times, again, if you just go back to the idea, a lot of people are thinking so much on the past. I had this investment that didn't work out too good. I have this relationship that didn't work out too good. I got fired from my job, or I'm just literally thinking about the past, right? And because you're thinking so much about the past, you forget about the now moment, and you forget about what could happen tomorrow. How can you plan for tomorrow? If you look at some other statistics, right, there's about 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day in your head, right? Of those thoughts, about 90% of them are repetitive, and 80% of them are negative, right? So again, there's so much garbage going on in your head. If you're living in the past, you're thinking about what happened yesterday, which is already gone. You cannot do anything about it, right? And you're just thinking about it, not extracting the lessons or the ideas or the things that you could have done better for today so that it can change your tomorrow. You're not going to be able to move forward. The second thing I will say to that is that the decisions and choices that you make today will determine the quality of life that you have tomorrow. Except if you're thinking so much about the past, how can you make a good, sound decision today that will impact your future? Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. That does answer my question.
Okay. Awesome.
All right, Cesar. So before we wrap things up, if there's any social media, books, whatever you want to shout out, this is the time to do it.
Yeah, definitely, Armin. Thank you. Again, you can find me really on every social media with my name, Cesar R Espino. You can Google my name, CesarREspino.com. Go to Amazon, CesarREspino.com. Cesar R Espino on Amazon, or my website, CesarREspino.com. And then you can find all my books, everything that I do. I also have a podcast called You Can Overcome Anything Podcast Show. Definitely go out and check out that podcast to give you more insights of, what entrepreneurs are doing in their life.
All right, perfect. And to anyone listening, I really suggest you go check Cesar out. Thank you so much, Cesar.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
one.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Have a
Cesar.
good day.
Thank you. Have a nice day, Cesar.